things that we are going to confront very soon in Africa. It's the funding models that we have for startups, and which startups attract the most attention. Somehow, well, I'm not complaining, or maybe I am, we managed to raise our first $100,000 to actually complete the prototype from an angel investor. But the angel investor was a person, a Kenyan who was known to us, who has settled in the US. And so was able to rally together some funding for us to actually do the prototype. And because they understood the culture and they understood the need, it was easy for them, even before the entire thing was out, to actually figure out this is going to be important. We in the diaspora pay for a lot of funerals back home. How do we actually know that the money we send is used for the correct purpose? How do we identify the suppliers that we need? How do we circulate the information on social media? But the problem that's about to happen, and which it's been happening, but now it's becoming critical, is that a lot of the funding that will go to startups in Africa will actually reflect the biases of the investors. The same way donor funding in Africa is done, it actually many times reflects the biases of the donor, in the sense of they use existing models, what they know. And so you will figure out that 80%, possibly 75 to 80% of the entire funding to Africa startups, as much as it reads on paper very nice, lots of hundreds of millions of dollars, most of them will go to fintechs. Because the story within the West and in Europe is that Africans are trying to find new ways of actually paying for, of trading and paying for services. And so fintechs are the place to go. Now, that creates a different problem, because in Kenya now we have over 50 fintechs, which doesn't make sense, because how many fintechs can one economy absorb, really? And so, so you have a situation like Kenya where Safaricom and M-Pesa basically is the biggest, possibly the biggest fintech that we have across this region. And over 98% of Kenyans use it. You pay bills, you pay for utilities, you pay for school fees, you pay, whatever it is that you want to do, you send money, you receive money, you fundraise, whatever it is you're trying to do, you can do it through that. However, now there are niche fintechs that have appeared all over, many of them replicating each other. But the donor funding, or rather the investor funding, seems to go there. So this whole aspect of having tech create these social impact platforms that will revolutionize a couple of other areas in Africa, like let's say the funeral industry in Kenya could be worth possibly about $500 to $600 million, and that's a very conservative estimate, because there are hundreds of services, but they are not documented as belonging to one industry. And so you end up with a situation whereby, since it's a gray area, you have a challenge with fundraising. So our initial bit, after doing the initial fundraising, we angel fundraising, we are going into pre-seed fundraising, but it is becoming quite a taxing exercise to actually explain to a lot of investors who cannot visualize that the funeral industry is actually one of the country's biggest. So what we've decided to do is actually to say, let us go on revenue mode. So we are working to actually raise our own revenue by executing different ways, working different funeral homes, getting some funeral homes to be pre-sellers or resellers of our services and stuff like that. There's a couple of things we're implementing, including which other areas do we delve into. There's funeral insurance, which is mostly static. So insurtechs are there, but you hardly see very, very innovative funding or insurance services that are in the funeral industry. So we've decided to go on revenue model, especially this year, to try and actually make a much more convincing case.
Our business is self-funding. we have really, we had to forego a lot of things to actually be able to raise the money, because everything all the money we had was from all the sales we were making, and we had to learn to be disciplined, and we had to forego certain things at home as well as in the business. Like there's certain luxuries you say, okay, we can't do this because we've got an aim and we've got a vision that we've put for ourselves, a goal we need to achieve. And so we needed to be on the same page. And so that's how we managed to raise our funds from just sales, really. And at the same time, I
Okay.
then started participating in training programs. And with those training programs, you find that for those that came with funding, I'd be right there right till the end until I'm able to apply for funding. And I was fortunate, one of the fortunate women to actually be founded by the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And that for
Okay.
me was the first eye opener to say, wow, you can actually get funded. And it was amazing. It gave us hope. I guess for him as well, it gave him the lesson to say, even as a woman, you can move in certain spheres of whether it's training, networking, and actually bring something on the table, which was very, very, for me, that was a plus for him as well. He appreciated that. So training platforms were a form of funding for us as well. So we got funding from there. And from that time, I've managed to get into different spheres, awards, and so forth. And those two, I have not used that money for anything else except for business as well.
I'm one of the advocates that any business that the customer cannot fund in Africa, on the long term, it's going to be a problem. So for me, the sweetest source of funding is revenue.
Okay.
So we started generating revenue, and I started by pitching to. I mean, the first person I invested in me, I worked with him together at a company I used to work with before
Okay.
he left to start his own company. And when I was pitching to him, he said, "Yeah, my sisters. I found out that my sisters struggled to also get credit." And that's why I did that investment. Going to your network, the first network. So it means that you have to be very intentional to make sure that you work in places that your network, or you need to network properly to make sure that your network is able to link you up and put in good words for you when you, with the people that you intend to raise funds for. I think that helped me. So my
Okay.
first seed investment came from someone I worked with. My second seed investment came from a friend that met somebody that said, "Hey, I want to invest or do something like this." And she said, "Hey, hi, I know somebody." So yeah,
Okay.
those two people. Then my third investor, I worked with him also in PwC. So
Okay.
now thinking about it, people that invested in my company are people that either worked with. So the two of them, I worked with them directly. The other one person, somebody that I know professionally, did an intro, and she said that's fine. She wanted to do something like this.